Welcome to Conflict and War Studies channel. Today I'm acting like a speaker and a moderator. I would like to first welcome my colleague, retired Brigadier General Taner Sauroğlu, who is a friend of mine. Thank you for accepting my invitation to come and talk to our channel first.
Well, it's my pleasure, joining with you, although it's online, but it's very comforting after seeing so many years face to face. But with this electronic, I guess, era, it's always good to see friends and colleagues, even you're not sitting in the same room.
Thank you very much. We are going to talk about the European defense industry today. And my friend is already working in a defense company in Turkey. He is the business development director. Maybe you can also shortly introduce your company, then we can start our
Sure.
discussion.
Sure. My name is Taner Sauroğlu. I'm a retired Brigadier General. And currently, I'm the business development director of Damise, which is a IT company in defense sector established in 2022 as a startup. The idea was to establish and provide a platform for all the stakeholders in the defense sector in order to make them correspond to each other regardless of their positions and regardless of their activities in the defense sector. And this platform provides some features which probably helps the supply management. And also we provide a certified products and services to be presented on the platform in order for potential customers. That is what we do in general.
Okay, thank you for this very
You're welcome.
brief introduction. And we can start now to talk on the European defense industry. As you know, in recent years, there's been a significant shift in Europe's defense industry, and the European countries have started increasing their production and aim to reduce their dependency on the United States. There are two main reasons of this. First, the Ukraine and Russia war, and the second one is the policy change in the United States. The United States now pushed the European countries to increase their defense budget, invest more on their defenses, and the aim, as far as I can see, is to equalize the defense spendings of European countries to that of the United States. So how do you see this development? What is going on in European defense industry sector nowadays?
Yeah, as you rightfully put out, the main change, even in fact, it is bigger than the change. It's like a shift, kind of a paradigm shift in the defense sector and also in the geostrategic environment in Europe. As you mentioned, there seems to be, at first glance, a kind of wake-up call after the Ukraine crisis in 2022. But we have to probably go deeper, not just start the Russia's aggression in Ukraine. But I think the issue started not directly with the Ukraine crisis. Even before that, there was a period when the collapse of Soviet Union introduced a kind of peace dividend era starting in 91. And in that era, the Europe and also most of the European countries felt the liberty to probably reduce their military and the capabilities that they had probably before 1990 were lost and all gone after that period. But the Russia's emergence, and you can put it as kind of an more assertive Russia starting early 2000, and some people even take it to 2007 Munich Security Conference, the declaration of Putin's and his announcement that Russia will not probably abide by some of the measures that they agreed previously. And this then probably emerged in some other instances that we can put in the Georgian crisis in 2008, right after that, and also the annexation of Crimea. But although there were many wake-up calls starting from 2008, I think Europe was a bit reluctant to respond. We may also include NATO among that late responders, because there was kind of a delusion probably at that time that the response should be through dialogue, that is for sure, but the messages that you give dialogue should also be strengthened by the military power or the defense power behind that dialogue, that messages that you send to Russia. Russia, seizing this opportunity, advance its position, and then later we came to the conclusion that Russia is able to invade a country with a military power that is unmatched to the competitors in Europe. And also, Russia used some other means that, which is mainly described as the hybrid warfare methods and asymmetric warfare, which created a situation of some kind of blurrence or blurred picture in the minds of defense strategists as what is the difference between peace, conflict, and war. Now, even some concluded that we are living in a period of continuous competition with Russia. And so this is also a kind of official view of NATO, and that is ultimately resulted the change in the attitude and the posture of Europe, and they decided that they had already lost some means and capabilities in terms of defense power, and then they need to strengthen their military capability. Of course, this was also urged, as you put rightly, by the United States, and because there seems to be a kind of balance in the favor of US in the military expenditure, or disadvantage, I would say rightly, because the US total military expenditure exceeds almost 900 million US dollars per year. And so this is a kind of message given by the United States that the Europe has to take some initiative and also, kind of a fair share burden, which requires ultimate increase in the GDP per capita in defense by the year 2035 of 5% of the total GDP.
So
That is the situation.
isn't this an exaggeration? I mean, 5% of the GDP allocated for defense expenditures. So there are
Mhm.
differing opinions and perceptions in Europe. Europe is divided on this one. Some people believe that the Russian threat is a real threat to Europe, but some people believe it is exaggerated. There are different agenda behind this, and people in Europe are also very critical to the increasing defense expenditures because it directly impacts their welfare. Especially young generations in Europe are very critical because every day the taxes are going to increase.
Yeah.
So
So of course, you may be critical of the subject, and then you may have some good argumentation against it. That's for sure. But ultimately, when it comes to security, I guess if you cannot provide the secure environment and for your people and for your economy, it is impossible to then expect flourishing and a and also providing a comfort zone for the people and for your country. Uh, Probably this is a continuous discussion, and how do you then divide and then set the priorities among the expenditures? Should 5% be the ultimate goal, or it should go higher, or it should stay as it is right now, close to 2%?
In 1989, when the Cold War ended, when the Berlin Wall
Hmm.
fell, the total expenditures of the European countries was 2.5% of their total GDP, which
Hmm.
fell to 1.2 in 2014 when Ukraine was annexed by Russia, and it started rising again. It's almost 2%, but maybe 2 to 3% is more understandable, but 5% seems very high. And
It's quite ambitious. It is
yes.
quite ambitious, I believe. And you may have a probably a kind of golden solution to the defense expenditures. You may argue for and against good points in order to defend that 5% is the right amount. But I believe what is lacking right now is the capability. So how do you achieve that capability is of course a matter of, I guess, a great solution that you need to allocate resources being financial resources, human resources, and also time, because you cannot reach 5% directly, and you cannot reach and acquire a capability just by allocating money. It takes time to get there. And
What
so
are the capability shortfalls in Europe
um,
today?
when you look at the geostrategic situation in Europe and globally, there seems to be, as I said in the beginning, an assertive Russia. So Russia considered to be the threat and officially recognized as the threat to NATO countries being mostly European. There seems to be a definitely an agreed perception of Russia as the threat. And Russia is unmatched to any country in Europe,
But in
being a
total,
nuclear.
in the NATO countries are 32 countries, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
and it's a vast amount of
Hmm.
resource, power, so that one
Yeah,
country alone cannot fight an organization which comprises of 32 countries. So it is a
you're
bit
right.
critical because Russia is the second largest power, military power of the world, has facing serious problems only in Ukraine, and
You're
were
right.
only able to gain 20% of the territory, and was also criticized in Russia that Russian forces are not able to carry out a strategic, in-depth maneuver to decisively
Hmm.
defeat the Ukrainian forces. So,
Yes.
there are perspectives that the threat is exaggerated. Yes, it is a threat. It's a competition, power competition between the European countries and Russia. But there are opinions that the threat level is exaggerated.
Yeah. It is because who fights war? I mean, any country in Europe can only fight for its own war. So we see the situation in Ukraine. Even Europe provides military capabilities. We cannot expect any European country to go in Ukraine and fight against Russia. But when it comes to NATO situation, then it's a bit different. An aggression to a NATO country is an aggression to all. So you would expect all 32 countries would come and reinforce and then defend against the aggressor. In this case, aggressor being Russia, if such situation arises. But on the other hand, the European countries, in terms of military capability, are not able to fight their own war against a country such as Russia. And in time of crisis and conflict, that is for sure, NATO will be the ultimate military organization to face Russia. But on the other hand, I think the idea stems from this very position that the United States want the European countries to share that military expenditures. That's why they are setting a high threshold for the military expenditure, which is 5%. That means it is 2.5 times of the current figure. And so that the U.S. Expenditure for the defense of Europe will be tolerated. And then U.S. has other priorities such as Indo-China region, Indo-Pacific region, in order to face the other competitor, which is China in that region. I think everybody agrees that there's a shift to Indo-Asia. The power center has shifted already. And that is the reason why we have such a 5% GDP threshold or goal for NATO countries.
Okay.
And you would agree with that. In NATO, the decisions are made unanimously, but on the other hand, there's peer pressure. And in this case, peer being US, what the US required the other allied countries is taken quite seriously, and then they agree on, regardless of their, I believe, their perception. But there's one thing for sure, that every NATO country and every European country agrees there seems to be an increasing threat perception, and this requires a sort of preparation in terms of financial preparation. You need to allocate resources. That is how I see the case.
Let's discuss the capabilities that are needed in Europe, the shortfalls, and what Europe is going to do. Are they going to manufacture the required capabilities on their own, or are they going to purchase them from the United States? Already, the 50% of the military equipment is purchased from the United States. And so is Europe going to build up their independent defense industry from the United States? What is it going on? How is it going on?
Yeah, the short answer to your question seems to be no at this stage. At least short to medium term, I'm not expecting Europe to create their capabilities, their sole capabilities of European capability, which can deter and defend against any aggressor. And they definitely require a US military and equipment, let's say for at least 10 to 20 years. Why I am pessimist about this European initiative, because it is not new. As the European Union established in the early 60s, end of 50s, 1958 to 59, there was also a very ambitious plan to create European Defense Army. And this army or this initiative failed several times. And the defense pillar of the European Union has always been the weakest since the nations, the countries wanted their sovereignty to stay as the national area They do not want any intra-governmental organizations such as European Union to be the decision maker. They develop several initiatives such as qualified majority voting and to enforce the decisions taken in that pillar defense. And still, in 2025, we have seen a kind of determination that they are going to build a European defense and security organization. And they say we are going to build a European Defense Union. So after this many decades, still they have the intention to build this military capability, which is which requires a critical, I believe, scrutiny, because there seems to be a capability available at hand, which is NATO. And when any capability created outside NATO seems just a duplication of effort, time, and other resources. So that's why they created European Defense Agency, which adopted NATO capability package development methodology. And then they created some of the initiatives as you would recall, like European battle groups, which failed to exist. And now they are again talking of creating European Defense Union, which is not an easy task because in terms of defense capability in the area of air defense, air and missile defense, Europe lacks that capability, which makes them dependent to United States. That is for sure.
So nowadays, one of the issues is about the drone warfare and the shortfalls in the anti-drone systems. Can you elaborate on this?
If I can, just tie it to this, air and missile capability, which is the defense against air and missile threats, is a drone is just part of it. So the bigger picture is you have several capabilities. I mean, you have several other capability, which is hypersonic missiles, for example. How you can defend against hypersonic missiles, which Russia has, which some other countries already has the intention to acquire as well. And the drone seems to be a kind of magic word, a solution to all problems. But some people are also critical of the fact that drones by themselves alone cannot dictate the ultimate result of the conflict or the war. It cannot impose your will against the opponent just by drones. But it's a definite. It is a force multiplier for sure. The first thing being, it is very easy to create your own capability through some experts or just by assembling parts that you acquire via internet. Then it becomes, and attach a munition to it, it becomes a drone. And some other capable drones you have, these are very mini drones, if you will. Anybody acquiring that drone and then attaching a kind of incendiary has the capability. But the other strategic level drones, which is UAVs, of course, they are more complicated, and the European countries are also missing that capability in that sense. But they have very capable aviation companies, I mean, manufacturers, in fact, such as Airbus, for example, which can shift their priority to create drones in short time. Or the French companies, for example, the aviation companies can also create drones. But the experience that in this case, in this area of drones, I guess Turkey would be a good example to the European countries, and they may even think of some sort of um, you know um, creating partnership with Turkey. And a long overdue issue is the Turkey's accession to European Union seems to be a kind of um, a good solution to this as well, because Turkey has already developed some capabilities in that field. And I would just conclude with the other capabilities that Europe is missing. I would say uh, they are also, in terms of detection capabilities and space capabilities, uh, they are short in that capability as well. And some conventional capabilities, they are very short, such as the artillery or the ammunition, manufacturing of the ammunition, since they have uh, just disbanded, if you will, their military in the early 90s, and then they closed their factories. They are lacking those very simple conventional capabilities as well. And this
So,
requires time to regain that capability.
so they also developed an initiative which is called SAFE,
Yeah,
Security Action for Europe, and they have
yeah,
allocated 150 billion euros for this
you're
initiative.
right. You're
And
right.
it is one of the debates whether Turkey should be included in this initiative. Some countries are opposing to this idea, but majority
Mhm.
of the European countries are in favor of this. So,
You're
do you
right.
think that this will happen? And if it happens, is it a good initiative for Turkey? How do you assess this?
Um, we- I mean, that could be two different answers to your question. One is a kind of political answer, which is because the issue is politically driven. Turkey should be part of Europe, or has always been part of Europe, but not the part of European Union because of some political, um, I would say, um, I would put it rightly. I'm just thinking the right word for that um, because of some good neighbors, I would say, Turkey, and also because of some powerful countries in Europe as well, because Greece and Southern Cyprus is a kind of leverage uh, which are used by sometimes France and sometimes Germany to keep Turkey out of European Union. And the issue cannot be downsized only to Turkish, Greek problems. The issue is bigger than that. And when you look at the fact sheet of their initiative, they set to spent almost 800 billion, euros to upgrade their capabilities. And when also just look at the summary, you cannot see Turkey in the partnership model. Turkey is probably indirectly involved in the SAFE through NATO because it is talking about the European Union, NATO uh, complementary, partnership for the defense of Europe. And I believe the easy solution to create a capable or Europe in the area of defense definitely requires Turkey becoming a member. That is the technical part of it. For the political part as well, if European Union wants to be a global actor as well, because it is economically big, but politically small, and militarily they call it even dwarf. So they need Turkey for that to be a global actor in all domains. And as long as they keep Turkey out, then they would be lacking that capability. Uh, Turkey has many capabilities to offer to European Union, not only militarily, but also politically and economically as well.
Okay.
I would also just mention that these intergovernmental or intragovernmental organizations are created for a purpose, that is for sure. But even for NATO, there's a good saying, probably you would recall that as well. NATO was created just to keep Russians out, Americans in, and Germans down in Europe. So this is not, a simple discourse from a layman. It is coming from the first Secretary General of NATO, Lord Ismay. So there seems to be a reality in that for the European Union as well. I would say as long as they keep Turkey out, and then they would be, still a defensive dwarf.
Okay, so it is for sure that the military capacity of Turkey is a big contribution both to NATO and indirectly to the European security in many aspects. Not only to defend conventionally the European
Mhm.
countries, but also to filter many of the unconventional, non-conventional threats.
Yeah,
So Turkey should be
be part of.
be part of the defense of Europe. European countries also are very much aware of this fact. But as you have rightly put it out, that Turkey, instead of being only a NATO country, maybe should become a full member of European Union. And in this
Yeah.
way, this integration may contribute both sides. So there are also different criticism about the militarization of Europe, that it may lead to militarism. The militarism means to see the military in the resolution of many issues at the center. So,
Mhm.
because there is a historical background of that, especially the Germans, which have started two world wars, and the increasing spendings of the Germans into defense is a bit concern for people and countries in Europe and in other regions. What can you say about this?
Uh, Well, it's a good topic, but it's not valid only for Europe, I believe, right? Nowadays we are living in an era that is a period which is conflict driven. You see the conflicts being resolved not diplomatically, but being resolved through military means, and through uh, military means being not following the international rule of law. And military means are used at will by some countries such as Israel, and also countries such as United States. And you can see, they definitely use their military power without any constraint, I would say.
There is also another factor, that there is always a competition between the European countries. Does that also exist in the defense industry? Is there a competition between the major powers of Europe, like France, Germany, United Kingdom, or Spain, Italy, which are developed countries in terms of defense production?
I believe the short answer to your question is yes, and that's just reminded me a question during my thesis defense at Leuven University. The professor asked me whether the European integration has been achieved, considering the UK position. At the time, UK was part of European Union, and he followed an expression, is UK a Trojan horse? And so this was kind of a shocking, and the shocking in the way that it was bluntly put, because the continental Europe has not seen UK as part of Europe since the start of the idea of European Union. And among the continental European Union members, you can also name France and Germany are the competitors and the rivals in all fields of life. Alsace-Lorraine being, I guess, the region is a good example of it, because for that they fought two wars, and only after Second World War they managed to collaborate and cooperate, so long as one of them is kept under control, because at the very beginning, I mentioned the European Defense Initiative, creation of a European Defense Army. The idea was not achieved because of the French, suspicion of the German position. They do not want Germany to be, equipped with the military capabilities, which can again compete against them. And you can also see this rivalry among the European defense companies, because although it can be seen as a free market, but we have, Airbus, for example, and also we have a French, aviation company. So they want their national military capabilities untouched, and they would like to keep them only to national sovereignty. And it is not only just economic driven area, it is at the same time a sovereignty issue, which prevents a united Europe. Although the idea was put forward by the famous novelist Victor Hugo. At the time, he mentioned to see Europe as a united European country, such as the United States of America. He mentioned the United States of Europe. But the idea has never come into fruition because of these differences and the competition among the European countries.
Thank you, first of all, for taking your time and coming and joining the program. You really highlighted important points in terms of both political dimension and the defense dimension of European defense and defense industry. There seems to be many new developments, and we will continue to follow the developments in Europe, both in defense and defense industry areas. I hope you can join our future programs and we can have new discussions on related topics. Thank you once again for joining our program.
It's my pleasure being with you, and hope to see you in future for any other relevant topic that I may contribute to.
And the Conflict and War Studies channel is focusing on developments in the defense military sector, conflicts, crises, and wars across the world. We will explore new crises and conflicts in the coming days.